Well, welcome back to Lucore Automotive. Today we are working once again on my 1994 940 turbo Volvo Wagon. Today, something pretty simple. Brakes. No big deal. Now, with one small caveat to that. We are going to be doing a set of slotted and cross-drilled rotors and a little bit more aggressive brake pad. This car is used a lot in filming, not filming of the Volvo, but these make excellent film cars. So I can lay somebody up to 6 feet tall in the back with the hatch up and get some excellent rolling shots when we're driving around. You've seen some of the footage on our channel with the IS300, as well as on Tim's Enthusiast Garage with some of his videos. We shoot out of the back of this thing pretty often. So at that point we are getting up to some speeds that we need to be able to make sure we slow down at. Honestly, I'm just making excuses. I'm upgrading to some slotted and cross-drilled rotors. Now, while I'm also doing that, we did run into an interesting situation where one of the studs broke off of our H&R wheel adapters, which I'll show you Rich discovering here momentarily.
So I was walking around in my front parking lot today and I found this. And the worst fear of any shop owner is to have something like that in your parking lot, because it means a lug nut just broke off of a car and I'm about to get a phone call from a customer that says, hey, my wheel just fell off. Luckily for me, I found this and I took a picture of it and I sent it to Austin and David so that we could try and figure out whose car it was. And ultimately, it turned out to be Austin's car. These wheel spacers and wheels have been on this car for... How many miles have they been on this thing? 15,000 miles?
Yeah.
These wheels and wheel spacers have been on this car for 15,000 miles. We retorqued them pretty religiously for a while. And then probably the last 10,000 miles, they probably haven't been torqued. And one of them's missing. So since it broke the one stud off, we're going to pull this wheel off, take a look at the other 4 studs on this wheel spacer real quick, because we don't want this wheel to leave the car.
So the option was replace the studs or just get an entirely new unit. Well, the studs are extremely expensive from H&R, and I didn't really want to spend $150 replacing my studs to make them all match. So I just got a brand new set of the wheel adapters. So we're going to take off the rear wheel adapters, replace them with a brand new set of wheel adapters, and then hopefully she's back in business and we don't have anything else to worry about. So anyway, brakes, 1994 940 Volvo Turbo Wagon. That's what we're doing right now. Now, as with the last Volvo video, I'm not going to do most of the work. Derek, our shop minion, is going to have to do most of this.
Shop slave.
Shop slave. It's probably not very PC to say that.
Floor sweeper.
Yes. So, we didn't do much of we didn't see much as far as reviews of these brakes, so we might as well go ahead and do a complete overview of the brake process. So, here's my new wheel adapters. I was very, very happy with these from H&R, and I'm honestly extremely surprised that one of them broke. I don't know how that happened, but we did put like 15,000 miles on this set of wheel adapters. It is what it is, but we're gonna go ahead and put another set of H&R wheel adapters on there, and I'm sure I will be happy again. I'll just make sure I check my torque specs. Always check your torque, especially when you're running spacers. They do have a little bit of a tendency to loosen every now and then, so make sure you every now and then go ahead and back check your lug nuts. So, they're not even boxed.
Race car.
So that would be a rear. Very interesting way of shipping. I've never had a rotor shipped just bare in a box.
Got papers.
Yeah, but normally they're like in a box. All right. Well, the nice thing with having the coating done, obviously the rotor surface, it'll wear off.
Yeah.
But the hat being coated means it will less rust chance.
Yeah.
So like these guys, you can see on these.
Yeah, they rust out, and then your e-brakes don't work.
Right. Because we're here in Ohio, those hats rust basically immediately.
Huh.
Interesting.
Okay, so
Those, I guess, are brake pads? Well, this is a little different. Normally, pads and rotors come in their own boxes, not just loose and wrapped up in paper, but
just a box.
we'll see. Again, hadn't ever seen any kind of review of these guys, but nobody made a actual slotted and cross-drilled rotor setup for 940 Volvos that we could find. So we bought these and we'll see what they, A, see if they fit,
Front and rear, yeah.
B, see how well they work.
What kind of pads are these?
I don't know. They came in the kit.
Hey guys, thank you.
Have a good one.
There's another couple sets of rear. Those are both rears.
Yeah, these are fronts. That's a left. That's a front.
No. Oh, is that a?
No,
That's
a front.
That's a rear. These are both rears.
I've got a whole lot of brake pads.
All the brake pads. All right.
So I've got.
Well, I guess we're only doing one side. Unless there's pads in here too.
I'm very confused. This is my very confused face. So we have two pads, and then we have
6.
two pads of a different size, and then we have two pads and two pads of the same size. I'm not feeling overly confident right now. Okay, so those should be front rotors.
Those look pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm going to guess that maybe they sent me a wrong set of pads. Like, these are probably correct for the rear.
Right. We need another set of.
These are definitely not both front sets.
No.
Those are not the same size.
I mean, your inside and outside pads wouldn't be different size.
I can't imagine they are.
I've never seen.
We'll
that.
find out. I guess it could be.
It's possible that the outside is big and inside is little. Maybe.
Is the disc surface on the front different on the inside versus the outside?
No.
We'll see.
Let me see the small. So that fits in there pretty well. Let me see the small one. That looks a little thin.
What's weird here is how big the ears are on this versus that. I don't feel like that'll.
So look how thin they are. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't cover that whole surface. This certainly would. That's a lot thicker, a lot wider. Like that fits pretty well. That would make sense, but this goes inside your piston,
So
which
that's
is
an
on the
inside
inside. Yeah.
So the only thing to do is going to be put it up in the air, take it apart, see what fits, what doesn't fit, and we'll go from there. Time for Derek to do some work.
We might be doing wheel bearings in a future video. Alright, now, so we've got the old rotors off, time to put the new rotors on, make sure they fit. We'll install the spacer on here, put all the brakes back together. Helps when you use the right rotor. Alright, so they seem to fit okay. We'll go ahead and just tighten these down a little bit to start out, and then we'll torque them later. We're going to go ahead and clean up our brackets and push in our pistons. One thing I'm noticing is the new pads didn't come with any hardware, so we're going to have to go ahead and get a hold of some of that before we can reinstall these. So the brake pads that we took off have plenty of life left in them. But we're going to go ahead and put some new ones on since we're replacing everything, since we're here. The pads that we thought that were for the back, now that I have everything apart, are actually going to be for the front. So we have front left, front right. The larger pads are, I don't know, that they don't go on this car. So we'll have to figure out where we can get some new pads for the back. So, like we showed you guys earlier, we have these, and they have pins in the back to put, you know, those go inside your piston. And none of the brake pads that I'm taking off have that. So these ones are obviously wrong pads for this car. And then we have these very large ones that are also do not go on this car. So I don't know what happened there. Like Austin said earlier, we never bought parts from these guys before, so we'll have to get a hold of some new brake pads for the rear as well. like on the other side, I'm going to use my impact on the lowest setting just to seat these wheel spacers, and then we're going to torque them final later. Alright, well, we've got our nice new rotor installed, so we've got our new wheel spacers here. We'll go ahead and put those on, and just like how we did in the front, I'm just going to tighten them down until they're seated, and then we'll have to, since these are new, we'll have to tighten these a couple of times as we drive to make sure that they're seating correctly. We don't have any pads for the rear.
We do. We have a Napa box sitting over there.
And it also didn't come with any hardware.
I'm not surprised.
So we're going to need to get a hold of some
Slides.
slides. Yep. But look at that. It's so shiny and pretty.
So the rotor actually fits pretty well?
Yeah, fits just like the old one.
Okay.
Looking good.
Okay. Okay. So this comes with instructions on torquing? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what was it, like 66 pounds or something?
Yeah.
So 66 foot-pounds, and then we mount the wheel up and we drive it around for a little while and we pull it back off and we
Retighten it. Yep.
go through it again.
Yep. I just tighten these down on the lowest setting just till they're seated. They're not actually tight.
Do you have the old one that came off? Yeah, this one.
Right there.
That is...
Now I did notice that these nuts weren't quite as tight as those, but they weren't loose either.
So... It's going to be really hard to get you to see this, but this is snapped. And the weird thing would be is if this got loose and the wheel was wibbly wobbling, it would have probably wibbly wobbled on all of them. You know?
Yeah.
It would have damaged the threads.
Yeah.
It would have been walking the wheel. If it walked enough to snap that stud, you would see
Severe damage on the other ones.
you would see something.
And there's nothing.
And there's literally no
There's
damage.
not even any marks on the rotor or nothing.
It's so weird.
Could it have been over tightened?
Again, the weird thing is
You put 1,500 miles.
15,000
or 15,000
miles. I did these before I went
on your 25
on my trip to Wyoming and back.
Yeah.
I've put almost 19,000 miles in this car since I've owned it, and probably more like 17,000 miles of those have been on these things. Well, whatever. It is what it is.
It's just a bad stud.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
you
well.
never know.
Yeah.
Have some impurities in the middle or something.
Yeah.
Make it super
I
brittle.
mean, I've used a ton of H&R stuff. There's springs and wheel adapters and spacers, and I've used a ton of their stuff. I've never had anything go bad. I wonder if they want me to send this to them without me taking this apart, or if I can knock this stud out of here.
I don't think you're going to see anything. I mean, there's no cracks. There's no
Yeah.
warping that, visible to the eye at least.
Oh well, because I did not trust.
Hey, look, those look
rear
like
brake
rear
pads.
brake pads
Yes. So
with
these
no hardware.
are actual rear brake pads.
Neither of those go on this car.
These are not. One is that big. Yeah. So I don't know what these are for. They are definitely not for this car. So the only option
Ferrari Lamborghini.
for rear brakes on this car is it an independent rear suspension car, or is it a solid rear axle car?
But you wouldn't get a brake pad that big.
No. Neither of them have brakes that are this big. So, not correct. Fortunately, we're a shop and we can have parts delivered. So, we can at least move forward on this.
Something to look out for.
Yes, but if you, Mr. Customer, were out there trying to do this yourselves, and this car is taken apart in your garage, how happy would you be? Anyway, moving on. Now that we've cleaned and sandblasted the calipers, and then we also degreased them, paint has been applied, and we're nice and blue. How about that? Kind of a match of Lucore blue and Volvo Polestar blue. So we are going to take all of our protective tape off and start replacing the brakes on this car. And now they're even going to look better too, especially with blue caliper and black brakes. It's going to look good. So time to get to work. Now, one thing we mentioned at the very beginning of this video is we had 3 sets of brake pads. One set is correct for the front of the car. Clearly the other set is not for the rear of the car. We did manage to get a new set of brake pads. Fortunately, Napa had some in stock, so I got a new set of those. Unfortunately also, none of the brake pads that they sent me with this kit came with any hardware whatsoever. So I also did need to pick up new hardware for the front and the rear. I'm also going to be replacing the brake hoses while I'm doing this, because it seems to me like everything on this car underneath it is factory original. Looking at the rear shocks, they're factory original. The front struts, those are factory original. So 200 and some odd thousand miles on original stuff. Time to start replacing it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the rear brake hoses and the front brake hoses while I'm doing this, and then I'll start hanging the calipers, pads, rotors are already obviously on the car, and we'll button her up. So back to time lapse. One brake hose out, keep on moving. Now, if you're doing this at home, it's a pretty reasonably simple process. Brake hoses are not that complicated, but you've got your ABS sensor that runs here, and it clamps right above where the brake line is. And then, as far as removing your brake line, it's just an 11mm line wrench. You're going to remove this. Now, there's a clamp that's on here that comes down with the brake line. It's not attached to the hose. So when you release this, you back this all the way out, it backs out of the hose, it brings that clamp down with it. Now that clamp grabs onto a ridge on the hose to keep them seated together. So not a real complicated process, just break this loose, and hopefully you don't need to use any kind of heat, but you can, if you need to, throw some heat at this and see if you can break it loose. Mine are definitely old. I don't know if they're original, but they're certainly old. The driver's side one was a little bit of a bear to get loose. We'll see how hard the passenger side one is to get loose. Yep, it's rounded up. I really don't like doing this. I think we're going to be hosed, Captain Obvious. Now, one thing you don't want to do is light this ABS sensor on fire, which is why it's out of the clip. Yeah, that's not moving at all. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You got a fancy schmancy way of doing this?
Yeah, cut it and reflare your line.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Come on, man. Get the brake line flares out.
Maybe you didn't hear my previous part of this video about taking a 2-hour brake shop and making it a 10-hour brake shop.
Get your brake line formers out and start making brake lines, man.
I am not wanting to do that.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to do that. So your first problem is your camera's on Austin height, not Rich Lucore height. Your second problem is you're not using enough heat. you just like you need more cowbell, you need more heat. So you're gonna need the acetylene. And while I don't recommend you heat up brake lines with temperatures, this has been disconnected so it won't build up pressure and blow hot brake fluid all over your face when you do this. But you're just gonna have to apply heat until it releases, and if it takes the brake line with it, it takes the brake line with it, because that's Ohio rusty cars. It is what it is.
That's the master technician tip of the day.
The master technician tip of the day is need more heat.
Okay.
Can't be tight if it's liquid.
Well, since it needs more fire, and Rich Lucore is our certified fire maker.
Am I the local arsonist?
He is our local arsonist. We're going to let Rich do this, and I'm going to stand behind the camera and weep when he melts my brake line. The 11 mil, by the way.
The brake fluid is expanding and dripping out now. And it still popped.
You alright?
Yep. And that's why you don't heat brake lines. The line was even open and it still blew all over me.
Oh, it just exploded. Hold on. No, I saw that. Yeah, it scared me a little bit.
Hey, but the brake line's loose.
Got it!
I win. The 3rd-degree burns from the spray on my ear is gonna suck, but...
Ow.
But hey, the line's loose. You don't have to make brake lines at the cost of my ear.
Got it!
Got it. Once...
Hose is stuck in the bracket. Here we go.
Oh, come on!
That one came off too. Got it! It's a good thing I'm wearing my safety beard. Now that we have our brake lines secured to our brake hoses, obviously there's no brake fluid in these, but we'll have to bleed those later on, is now finally time to put the pads in the calipers, mount the calipers on the rotors, get this process more or less done. For those who are interested, 14 millimeter and a 11 millimeter line wrench. I do actually have one rear brake hose that needs a 15 millimeter, which is interesting. All the same manufacturer, but whatever. So, time to load some calipers put the calipers on the back, on the front, get this party going. There you have it. New hoses, reconditioned calipers, new pads, new rotors, original HR wheel spacers. These have been re-torqued down, and there's a process for that, so I need to go drive it 50 miles or so and then bring it back, take the wheels back off, and then re-torque these back down. Your torque spec is your torque spec. I'm not going to discuss what my torque spec is, so make sure you do yours properly. The pads that are in this and the rotors, these are from brakeperformance.com. Not sure yet exactly how I'll rate them. Wasn't incredibly impressed, as you saw in the beginning of the video, with the packaging. They sent me the correct front pads. I have no idea what they sent me for rear pads. They were probably, looks like something like an S10 GM pad. So I did need to pick up another set of pads for the rear. No hardware comes with the pads at all, so you're going to need pads, or you're going to need hardware for the front and the rear, provided they send you the correct pads for the rear. So rotor fitment, okay, pretty good. I'm pretty reasonably comfortable with the workmanship of the physical rotor itself. It seems to be okay. There's no burrs, no problems at all. It seems to be pretty nicely machined. We'll see how it stops. But otherwise, we're all ready to rock and roll. So I am going to toss the wheels back on this guy and get it out for its first test drive, which will of course go swimmingly well. If it doesn't, you'll see it on Instagram or in another video, as far as me in a ditch or something. So that's where we're going to end this episode. The next episode for the 940 Volvo will most likely be suspension and handling upgrades. As we have noticed when we were underneath here, these struts and those shocks are factory originals. Also, the sway bar links are pretty much shot, so probably have some things in mind for that. So if you're interested in 940 Volvos, this is definitely the kind of thing to watch, as I take apart every little thing there is to do on this thing and fix everything. You know, one piece at a time, I guess. So anyway, thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys being here. As always, please subscribe to the channel. It's not just 940 Volvo goodness, it's turbocharged goodness, it's diesel trucks, it's muscle cars, it's all kinds of stuff. Anything we do here at Lucore Automotive, we'll basically show it to you. So as always, leave us a comment if you have any questions or anything. If your comments are about doing a brake job on a Volvo, great. If they're about this product specifically, great. Whatever, just let us know. Drop it in the comments below and we'll be happy to get back to you. So I'm going to put the wheels on, go for a test drive, and then I'm going home. Hope you've enjoyed this. We'll see you next time.